Hello and welcome to the Autocar Show from Ambi Valley in Pune. On today's show, we have a locally produced and engineered car. Now I know what you're thinking. When we say locally engineered, you're thinking something basic like a hatchback or maybe an SUV, a low-cost SUV, something like that. But today we have something quite different. This is Avanti. Now this may be a sports car with 248 horsepower under the hood, but it's the low-slung dimensions that are likely to get you lathered up first. I'm particularly drawn to the muscular-looking nose and the shoulders of the car. The surfacing of the bonnet is just right, and the black line in the center breaks the mass of the bonnet up perfectly. The chin with its wide open mouth does have a bit too many lines for my liking, but the tightly executed doors and the upper and lower vents are just right. DC is also a designer who loves to shock, and the long tail along with the big overhang and the drooping rear are certainly an acquired taste. Of course, you also want to know what's under this attractive looking early prototype. The Avanti is powered by a mid-mounted 2-litre engine developing 248 horsepower. An off-the-shelf 4-cylinder unit from a well-known French car maker, the car also uses a stiff box section chassis based on a globally successful design. It also uses race car-like independent A-arms both at the front and the rear, and the struts are outsourced from Koni. The chassis and suspension arms, however, are manufactured in-house in Pune, and the 20-inch wheels, they come from Wheels India. Stopping power comes from massive 330mm ventilated discs in the front and 295s at the rear. Bosch and Foundation Brakes India supply the hardware, and Continental of Germany has developed the anti-lock braking system. The body panels are constructed from super strong, high-tech carbon fiber, also made and cured in-house by a set of people who were earlier supplying the Indian space program out of Bangalore. I climb into the surprisingly roomy cabin. The seat base is quite wide and travel is sufficient too, but headroom is a bit tight for tall drivers. The problem is this car has a really low roof and the floor is relatively high to make a deal better with Indian roads. The interiors of this pre-production car are still a work in progress, and there's lots of detailing yet to be finished here. What we can say, however, is that the basic design is appealing and the custom 3-spoke steering wheel feels just the right size. Visibility out the back, however, is poor. You can only look through a small slot-like rear windscreen, so you have to rely a lot on the reversing camera. We are told, however, that the final car will have a digital instrument panel with the resolution of an iPad, and there will be new door pads on the production car too. The next and obvious question, of course, is how well does it drive? Now the 4-cylinder turbo engine isn't the nicest sounding in the world. It isn't very sporty, it's a bit wheezy and whiny. And if you really need it to perform, you really do have to lean on it. But what it does have is a nice strong mid-range, and at top end you can really exploit. Once you are on it, however, the strong mid-range delivers considerable punch. What also helps responsiveness is the short, tightly stacked gearing of this 6-speed gearbox. While the car we were testing had done a considerable 18,000 kilometers, we decided to still run it against the clock, just to see what it would do. It wasn't easy launching it with those massive rear tires and the big turbo, but we did manage to get a 0 to 100 time of 7.7 seconds, which isn't too bad, all things considered. If there's one thing owners might miss, however, it's the option of an automatic gearbox, with paddle shifters, of course. But what the Avanti likes in particular is dispatching corners. Now, DC's Avanti is nowhere near as resolved as something like a Ferrari or a Porsche. That's in a completely different league. So what it does is give you a feel of driving a sports car. You're low down, the center of gravity is low, it's got a decent amount of power, and it does stick to the road, so you feel really good about driving it. Because this car isn't really powerful, you really need to push it a bit to get to enjoy it. But once you do that, the really sticky chassis, the good weight distribution, and the big tires come into their own. Absolutely the nicest thing about this car is that it has all its weight in the right place. The balance is really good, and this allows you to really push the car once you know what it's going to do. It has a nice planted feel around corners, and you do really get the impression of driving a fun sports car. Car's electric power steering is yet to be resolved, and changes need to be made to iron out some inconsistencies in the field. Still, there's no shying away from the fact that DC's Avanti really does have the potential to be a really good driver's car. Where sports cars normally hug the tarmac, the Avanti has a considerable 170 mm of ground clearance. What's also great is that it's set up for Indian roads, so speed breakers like this cause absolutely no problem. You can just drive over them without having to worry at all. What also improves with use are the brakes. Initially they feel wooden and very hard, and there isn't much stopping power, but lean on them a bit harder and the car does come to a halt pretty quickly. DC's Avanti, India's first mid-engine car, will be available from an expected price of 35 lakhs. And at that price, you'll get a lot of car for your money. DC's Avanti is riveting to look at, low slung, and does give you an impression of driving a sports car. Yes, there are issues with this early prototype, but get it right and we see potential in this car. As for our final verdict, we'll have to reserve that till this car is finally production ready.